Some of the major challenges I see, I get concerned about some of the traffic and the speed on the roads. The main area would be when you're coming from Lincoln High School, where it goes from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, and you've got a quick turn to the right that a lot of people take right by the bank. And then you've got a very busy intersection on 48th, and there seems to be a lot of accidents there. And when you get to the end of the 4 lane, people are going way over the speed limit. I've been passed by ridiculous people. Solution is tough there because stoplights are expensive, turnabouts are expensive. But I think that's something that needs to be addressed, and the speed from 48th to the county line. There's a lot of residents along that, and there's buses and other things, and I know that speed there, people can get out of control, especially when they're done with work or on the way to work. Another one that I see and I'm concerned about is the water levels in a lot of Wisconsin rapids. The last couple of years, we've seen a lot of rain events, larger snows, and the ditches are filled, and it's flooding a lot of people's homes. I look at the Wood County Park at Wazeecha. That has been, a lot of areas have been washed out. There's a lot of times through the summer when it is raining that people cannot even use that area where the frisbee disc golf is, because of the amount of water that's there. A solution to me is, I think that a lot of the streams and ditches have been neglected, and they get plugged with downed trees, they get plugged with heavy vegetation from the fall, and the flow just isn't what it used to be or should be. And I guess I would like to take a look at what some of those streams, go and clean some of the streams out, maybe clean some of the ditches out, and get the water to move past so it's not standing and puddling in the ditches, flooding people's homes and causing problems with sump pumps and other things. So those are a couple of the main ones that I'm looking at right now.
I will say that, that in my knowledge, there's no right now outwardly facing major challenges that the board's facing. I think the biggest challenge as being a town board supervisor is really understanding the needs and the operational needs of the town and looking at what's happening from a day-to-day basis. And really the biggest impacts that a town board supervisor is going to be making is reviewing the budget on the annual basis, of looking in terms of what's going on and the needs and the necessities of the town, to keep the services that we offer for the town of Grand Rapids to the residents at a high level of service while still maintaining that budget every year. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge as a town board supervisor, is really looking at that and understanding what's happening throughout the year, and then applying the needs and maybe some things that are maybe we need to look at differently every time we look at our budget, and making those decisions throughout the year. I think that's really the biggest challenge as a town board supervisor.
Okay. Every town has its challenges, and more often you'll have seasonal challenges. But the most important to do is to look at these challenges as opportunities, to turn them into opportunities. First, I think the most important thing that's facing the town of Grand Rapids is the annexation of land to the city. In the past 7 years, we have lost 24.918 acres lost to annexation. So this brings us to an excellent opportunity for the City of Wisconsin Rapids and the Town of Grand Rapids to go into an intergovernmental agreement. I think this would be both beneficial to both the city and the town.
So I know that ATV traffic, and I know that some of the surrounding areas, I know the town of Grant specifically has opened up their township for ATV traffic, and we see a lot of ATV traffic right around 80th Street and right on the edge of the Grand Rapids. And I do know this is an issue that I've heard a lot from different various residents in the town that I've spoken to over the years. This was discussed when I was previously on the board. This was discussed, and although it was not brought to the town in a way that they were requesting necessarily the roads to be open at that time, there was a lot of discussion about it. I'm not going to say that I'm for or against it specifically, but I can say this, that I'm open to looking at it, and my concerns are that of public safety. The township of Grant and the township of Grand Rapids are significantly different in terms of their population and the congestion and traffic that we see on our roadways. I wouldn't want ATVs to be a disruption to some of our neighborhoods and subdivisions and communities where people don't want to have ATVs driving up and down the roadway. But then again, I understand the desire for folks to be able to get and access some of these trail route systems. So I think carte blanche, we're going to support, for me at least, to be all the way across the board that every town road be opened up for ATV traffic in Grand Rapids. At this time, I really don't see the need or support that. However, I'm open for discussion, and I think looking at route systems and establishing good routes for people to be able to utilize the ATVs, and then limit the distraction towards neighborhoods or places where they don't want ATV traffic, and then looking at safety concerns in the roadways. I'm open for a bigger discussion about that. I just think that this isn't something that we would just want to slap out and say, yeah, we're for sure going to, open up all the roadways for ATV traffic. I really think there should be more of a thought process that goes into this, and an understanding. And really, I've heard from both sides. I've had people come to me in the community that really strongly believe we should have ATV trails, and I've had other people say that they don't want them, and they don't want ATVs traveling down their roadways in their neighborhoods and the communities in which they live. So I really think trying to find that good happy medium is what is going to be important.
Okay. First of all, we completed, when I say we, the town of Grand Rapids sent out a survey in March of 2020, and that was one of the questions that was on the survey. And with that survey, we ended up, it was indicated that 76.8% of the residents do not own an ATV or a UTV. 16% of the people that returned the survey said that they would like to see all the roads open to this type of usage. 37% said, I'm okay with some of the roads. And 31% said no roads open at all to ATV or UTV. And then, of course, there was 15% that said no opinion. I think it's important that we protect the quiet atmosphere and limit noise pollution. That was one of the results of the survey, that it was one of the top 5 qualities of the town that the residents thought was essential or important for the town government to uphold. Opening the roads to ATV or UTV from that survey ranked 10 out of the 10th position out of 13. That the residents wanted to have change in the town. So there was a question on the survey that said, what things would you like to have changed in the town? And number 10 out of 13 was to have UTVs and ATV open to the roads. But to answer your question, my number one concern about ATV and UTV opening up on the roads is safety. I think we need the approval from Police Mel Peterson to ensure that the regulations and the safety can be enforced and upheld. We're not going to be just dealing with town of Grand Rapids residents once we open up the ATV or UTVs to the roads. So we have to, I'm just very highly concerned about the safety. And for an example, motorcycles and mopeds, they're required to have a license to be utilizing on the roads, along with insurance. And ATVs at this time, drivers over the age of 12 may operate ATVs with a certificate and with no insurance at all on the vehicle. So that's my biggest concern, is the safety part.
I would be in favor of it as long as obviously the machines that would be running it are properly, have the lights, blinkers, brake lights, aren't too wide. The people who are driving it obviously are licensed, trained operators. Speeds are going to have to be followed. I maybe even possibly timelines on when they can be driven. But I think as long as the machines are road worthy with everything, and the drivers are licensed and sober, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. I think that the trails, ATV trails, are something that are very popular and getting more and more popular, and stores and restaurants and stuff with, they get the snowmobilers in the wintertime, but it'd be nice if they could get some of them through the summertime with ATVs as well.
Okay, the board did meet with Solar Smart committee, and the survey indicated, again, I referred to the city because the fact, or to the survey because of the fact that I want to ensure that the voices of the town are heard. So I do refer a lot to the survey because that is the input of the residents. They did indicate that somewhat was needed, or it wasn't very much needed in the town. Solar farms do require a large area to be performed, from what I've understood. And the board felt at this time that the return on investment wasn't very evident. So if the opportunity arises, again, we definitely would take a look at the solar farm.
I think, some of the advantages obviously would be, as they call green energy, free energy coming from the sun. That's always a good thing. Less pollution going into the air. I look at that. The disadvantages are they can be kind of an eyesore because where you have to put them has to be out in the open, obviously. If they're covered by trees, they're not getting utilized. So they can be kind of an eyesore, take up space, and I'm the type that likes to have as much space as possible, open space. I'd have to look at what the cost of it versus how long it lasts. What's the maintenance of it? What's your return on investment? Is it a long-term thing, or do you have to replace them? And the other thing that I would want to look at is storm damage to them. If a big hailstorm comes through and damages it, that's something that would be concerned about. Spend a lot of money on something and have to constantly fix it.
So solar farms, really what it boils down to, and when I was on the board, we had been made aware of the solar farms and the ability to make our town kind of solar ready, if you will, in providing the resources. And really it comes down to, with our strategic plan and kind of with our planning and zoning, allowing these solar panels to be able to be installed on individuals' residences. And I think really what the town is just making sure we have a clear path for if people want to put these solar panels and solar farms on their properties, that we have the means and the ability to have at least our ordinances and our zoning set up for that. And I think that's really the key thing. That's the promotion the best we can do. And if people choose to put those on their property and they want to do that to supplement their energy consumption, that would be encouraged by the town.
The plowing schedule, I don't know exactly what it is because I'm not currently on the board. I would be afraid to put plows in a certain schedule. I'd look at just a couple weeks ago when we had a warm day and it snowed that night, and then the temperatures dropped off significantly and turned that snow to ice. I think if the plows would have been on a set schedule, it could have been a lot worse, and it took the roads several days to clear up where the plows couldn't get at it to start with. So, in a case like that, I would hate to see them be on a set schedule. If you're running at night, it's not always safe. The drivers may be tired. You can't see as well, obviously. I like the idea of sand over salt in some areas. Obviously, salt is hard on vehicles and other things. And sand can typically get washed off the roads pretty quick in the spring and doesn't leave, and salt also, you get the animals that come out and lick on the salt, which, may lead to the higher deer fatalities and car accidents that way.
Absolutely. Here's the thing with that is I think that's just a fine line. I think the town, in my experience, does a pretty good job with this. I kind of keep an eye on that as well, and I don't believe that we need to have the plow trucks out for that dusting of snow, and I think there's that threshold. I think, in my opinion, the town does a good job of managing that and determining what resources are there and looking at what's needed. I think the salt versus the sand is a good option, but I think some of our heavier roads, heavily traveled roads and intersections, they need the salt. They get kind of glassy, especially with the high volume of traffic that we have, and we're a community that sees a large volume of traffic flow in the early mornings and people getting on the school bus and things. And I think safety is paramount. So I think there's a place for sand. I think there's a place for salt. I'm not in favor of eliminating either one or the other. I think a good common sense utilization is going to be important, and just really assessing the roads. I think the town right now, the town crew, Rick Austin supervises the town crew and does a really nice job assessing what is, when the plow trucks need to go out. And I know he works with the town chairman on that decision making of, when they should be out doing the salting and sanding and when they should plow. And I think they do a pretty good job right now of doing that.
The plowing, maintaining the roads and plowing the roads and salt is one of the largest part of town budget. And it's probably one of the most important part of town government is maintaining the roads. I think, the majority of the plowing we try to do is when there's the least amount of traffic on the roads. So, that's just a common practice that they try to do. Of course, it snows on weekends and holidays, so of course our plowing personnel are out there during the holidays and weekends. But our public works employees, they are able to flex their hours to try to eliminate the overtime that may be incurred, and they're very good at that. And then also we have hired part-time snow plowers, so that will help alleviate any type of overtime that would be paid to the employees. I think one of the biggest cost savings is just to maintain our equipment, making sure that they're running efficiently. That I think, as an example, a good spreading hopper to ensure that it's working efficiently, so that the spreading ratio is accurate and just doesn't dump when it starts and stops. But I think a person would be able to have more cost savings if we would contract fuel or gasolines. That would be a year-round savings and not just a savings of during the wintertime.
So absolutely. This is something that when I was on the board before, I thought was a great idea. We discussed it, and actually when we had the storms that we had that summer, we had people be able to bring brush in, and there was it was looked at the time as something that we were gonna look at a long-term project. I had left the board before we were able to initiate that as a permanent solution, but I'm absolutely in favor of doing that. I think really the biggest thing we need to do is determine cost, because the volume of stuff that we have come in, we have to pay for somebody to come up and grind the mulch and get rid of it and haul away, or maybe we offer some of that mulch to residents to use for landscaping. Those are all things that I think we really need to be considering in terms of that. We had the space for it. The volume that we had, I know it was successful that they were able to come and mulch that, and it was at a relatively low cost to the town, and I think it was worth it. I think that's a service that I think a lot of the town residents would appreciate, having the ability to do that. I know right now we have the ability to purchase a sticker to be able to go in and use the City of Wisconsin Rapids' location, but it'd really be nice to be able to have our own spot for that to take place as well.
I'm glad to report that I'm on the Recycling and Solid Waste Committee, and this was one of the projects that the town board had issued us to work on. And in fact, we are going to be opening up the area just when we had the emergency brush collection. We're going to start having a site set up just like that at the town garage. And we're proposing on starting it on March 22nd and then ending April 30th. We'll be collecting just brush and stumps, and grass clippings they'll have to put somewhere else at this time, but this is our first step in order to get this working for the town residents. And we're only going to do this for the residents and non-commercial. So I'm excited to report about that.
Yeah, I think they should. The nice thing is that it's people aren't just dumping it wherever. They're not trespassing on, county land or people's land and with a pickup truck and just, shoving it out the back. If it goes to one location, it's easy for them to get there with hours. And then when that is stockpiled, if the town can bring in a chipper or something like that and run it through a chipper and then potentially sell the chips, the wood chips, to pay for the cost of that chipper. I think that would be a big benefit to the town, and I think people would utilize it. And the other thing, you may prevent some fires that get out of control also, because you don't have people who are stacking it up and burning it maybe when they're not supposed to, and causing a problem that way.
Well, I think it's important. Our area is into health. Walking and biking is so important to get us out there moving and doing. Right now, the Economic Development Committee is working on working with the City of Wisconsin Rapids to develop a walking path and biking trails. I think another thing would be is down the road we have in our forecast that we may have to repave some of the roads, and at that time it would be so beneficial to widen the road area to have the walking path or bike path off to the side.
I would be, again, very much in favor of it. I get nervous and scared when I walk down the shoulder of the road, or if I see people walking down the shoulder of the road. With all the texting and thing that goes on, it's just people's attention aren't a lot of times where it's supposed to be. If you can provide places for people to get away from the shoulder of the road and put them on paths, it's going to be safer and gives them a location. And if it's a scenic area, people probably would utilize it and enjoy it.
So I strongly support this as well. I really look at, I love living in the town of Grand Rapids. I think we're just a phenomenal place to live. I really enjoy running. I enjoy walking and biking around Lake Wazeecha. I have my whole life, and I think we just have a really great recreational township that has a lot to offer. And I think the more we can expand the network that we have of those trails, I think is important. The thing I do want to see, though, is I want to see those trails connect or go somewhere. I know in the past there's been talk of, well, we'll put a trail on this one road or make a bike path or a bike road. There was some discussion of that taking place on Washington Street a couple of years ago during a time when the road was going to be redone. And I think I'm in favor for that, but we need to be looking in the long term. If we put a bike path in or a walking path in, where are we going to connect it to so we can make this a network of trails, not just a bunch of little trails all over the place or a bunch of little walking paths all over the town. They need to be looked at as a network, and if we're going to put something somewhere, we need to be looking at how we're going to connect that to another path or into the network that we already have established. And I think the center of our town, pretty much being the Lake Wazeecha area and the network of trails that go around there, and people being able to access that lake through by walking or biking, I think is really where we start with that.
Sure, a dog park. I would be in favor of that if it was in the right location, it was monitored. I wouldn't want to just have, a fenced-in area. This is where you take your dog and it turns out to be a mess, or people aren't taking care of it, or they've got dogs who don't play well with other dogs there. Obviously monitoring it would be a good thing, but there are people who don't have a large yard, and I'm a dog owner, and I think that a dog should have a lot of room to go run around when it needs to. And if they've got a small area and would like to take it to a large area, I think it would be a benefit to the people.
To my knowledge, there's not been. I would be supportive of doing such a thing. I would like to see if that was going to happen. I would think that would take place by a private group that would bring that in and say, we'd like to do a dog park and apply for the permitting for that. I don't necessarily see that as being something the town would manage or that would do as far as like town land or anything like that. I wouldn't be opposed to that if someone were to have the space or propose that, but that would be at a cost to the town then to figure out where that would be, and then potentially be taking trees off of it. And I don't know, from my experience with the town budget, I just don't know where we would come up with that. But I know that the town would be supportive of, potentially the zoning and place if the dog park was to be in a location. I think that I would be supportive of that.
There was talk about that, and indeed, you were correct in saying that there was interest in that. And at this time, I can say that the board has no plans on that, but it's not that we wouldn't be open to the fact, I would assume. To be, again, we'd have to make sure that we found the correct area in the community to be able to handle that, because I know through the Plan Commission, there are quite a few people that are very concerned about barking dogs, and we do get police reports with barking dogs. So we'd have to be very sure that we choose the correct area so that someone doesn't come back and say, we don't want this in my backyard.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They do, and a lot of people don't know what's going on. When I was on the board previously, I'd have conversations with friends and family and people that I know throughout the township and residents in the town, and a lot of times they didn't know we were talking about specific issues. And I think what's really important is we're in an age now where social media is the driving force for communication. And I think that the town, something we could do a better job at is promoting what discussions or maybe the topics that are being discussed. I know we put out agenda items, but maybe even just posting things that just talk about we're going to be discussing these issues at the meeting, and shining more of a light on it and presenting some of those things. I think it's our job as a town to put that stuff out there and not necessarily just, well, we posted a meeting minutes and here they are, and expect people to go look for that information. We need to do a better job at trying to kind of broadcast that information in today's media. And today's media is the social media platforms and pushing things out on a different levels and just necessarily meeting minutes or posting the notices in the paper and such. So I think there's other avenues that we could be utilizing to educate the people on what topics are being discussed at town board meetings and what decisions are being presented to be made.
Yeah. Participation in town government has always been sad to say, not too many people showing up to the meetings, but we can look at it in a positive way that could be an indicator that they agree with what we're doing. We have had meetings where we've had quite a few participation of residents, and that's because of controversial topics. So to me, when people don't show up, I'm starting to get a feel that they are agreeing with how the town is being run. COVID didn't really help anything as far as being able to have more people come to our meetings. I think with utilizing public access, they're able to be involved on their own time viewing our meetings. And then they can anytime follow up with the supervisors if they have further questions in regards to the meetings or what had transpired on a meeting. And then, of course, I think we're going to start utilizing more Zoom type of opportunities because people are still not comfortable coming to the municipal building for the meetings, even though the municipal building is open to the public again. So those are some of the other ways of trying to get more participation. And I think too, our meetings or our committees are always welcome. Have a nice warm welcoming for people that are showing and allowing them to speak.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about that. I think a lot of people, number one, they probably don't know when they are. Maybe a little advertising. I think the people in the town government, telling people, walking out and telling their neighbors what might be on the agenda, different issues that are going to be covered. I know I've talked to some people who are like, I didn't even realize that was getting covered, or I didn't know that was happening. I know that there's a newsletter in Grand Rapids that goes out once in a while, and maybe some of the major things, but would the agenda going out via the Facebook page or something like that so people can see what's going to be covered and try to get some interest in there? I think something to be looked at. But yeah, I agree we need to have more participation, which is why I'm going to be running. Sure. I think I'm a practical thinker. I'm an honest person. I'm born and raised in Wisconsin Rapids, other than a few years that I left for a job. I've been in Grand Rapids for almost 9 years now. Talked to a lot of people. I enjoy the town. And I was taught a long time ago by my grandpa, who was also on the town board, that if you want to make changes, you can either sit and complain on the couch or you can get involved. And I think getting involved at the local level is very important, and you can take your concerns and the people that you talk to, their concerns, and have a direct effect on it. So that's kind of why I'm running. Well, it's not kind of why I am, but that is why I'm running, and I hope I can get your vote.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the people in the town of Grand Rapids for allowing me to be a supervisor previously. I served as a supervisor up until this last year for about 3 years, and I really enjoyed the time that I spent on the town board. Got involved in a lot of things. I learned a lot. It was being a town board supervisor is definitely a learning experience. It's not something anybody can just step right into. There's a lot of understanding how the town works and how the government works and budgeting and so on. I think I bring some experience to that. I've worked previously. I worked for the town of Grand Rapids as a police officer for the town for several years. I've worked in town government. I've worked in county government, and I've worked in state government. I've spent my whole career working in that aspect. So I kind of understand how government works and how government operates, and where we can see efficiencies or make changes to operate more efficiently and at a reduced cost to the taxpayer, but yet still get the best job that we possibly can done for our residents. And I think that's probably the strongest asset that I bring to the town board, is looking at things that way. I think the town board has got a great team of people that collectively everybody brings in kind of their 2 cents, if you will, of their perspectives of looking at things, and that's kind of where I come from, is just that experience on the town as an employee and on the town level, county level, and state level, and that's, I think, really helped me bring something or give something back to our town while I've been serving on the board, and I hope to get the opportunity to continue to do that for the town of Grand Rapids.
Okay, well, I just want to say thank you to Mary Dom and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I think it's so important to have this forum to keep the people informed. The first year I was elected was in 2013, and I've grown with this town, seeing the changes and understanding its needs. I was born and raised in the town of Grand Rapids, and my heart is with the town of Grand Rapids. Looking back, when I was first elected, I didn't know what the duties encapsulated with the becoming a town supervisor. However, I've always had the desire to learn, so the goals I started with are still my same goals that I have today. And excuse me, my goals are the same, and the first one is to identify and work on eliminating wasteful spending, maintaining property tax levels, make common sense decisions with creative solutions, assure the community has a part of the decision-making process, and ensure the voices are heard. I believe my goals are needed in the town, and I understand what it's like to raise a family and to work hard to make the ends meet. I understand how important it is to keep the quality and the atmosphere of the town a safe, quiet, family-oriented community. And if elected, I'll continue to learn and study and make the best decisions with the information I have at hand. And I will always keep Grand Rapids close at heart. Thank you.